More than a dozen Western countries have issued a statement condemning the deployment of Russian mercenaries in Mali. It's one of the first acknowledgments by Western powers that the Russian government is providing support for the positioning of private military contractor the Wagner Group on Malian soil. France recently announced it would begin removing French forces stationed there as part of its anti-insurgent Barkhane operation. Felix Light, journalist from the Moscow Times, joins us now from the Russian capital. Felix, tell us a bit more about the Wagner Group, about what it is, rather, and how it's tied to the Russian government.
Yeah, well, so the Wagner Group has come up in a number of stories sort of regarding Russia's influence abroad and its projection of power in areas from sort of the Middle East to Africa and Ukraine. And what we know about it is it's financed by a businessman, or reportedly, I should say, financed by a man named Yevgeny Prigozhin, who's a sort of a Kremlin-tied oligarch. He's sometimes known as Putin's chef because his companies also have catering contracts in the Kremlin halls. And so it's sort of very much tied to him. He's a very, very close Putin ally from quite some time ago. And so what we see is Wagner sort of consistently playing a role in places where sort of the Kremlin and where Russian foreign policy has a stake but wants to maintain a degree of plausible deniability. So we see them sort of very much working hand in glove. They usually recruit from sort of former veterans of the Russian armed forces, and they often deploy in sort of areas that are very, very sensitive to the Russian government and to the Kremlin. So in the last couple of days, we've seen reports that Wagner may be deploying forces in eastern Ukraine, where, of course, there's a sort of a war scare right now. So we do see sort of the two sides very much, as I say, working hand in glove. And when we sort of see Wagner operating somewhere, we do generally imagine that there's at least some sort of Russian government sign-off on it, if not sort of direct involvement.
Felix, the deployment this deployment to Mali is making headlines, but these mercenaries already have a strong presence in Africa, including in Central Africa.
Yeah, the presence of Wagner in Africa has almost grown in recent years, really in conjunction with Russia's general interest in Africa. You know, we've seen Russia sort of set down very strong relations with countries like the Central African Republic and Sudan. And in the same level, we've seen sort of Wagner move in and take a sort of a corporate interest where the Russian state takes a political interest. We've seen Wagner mercenaries fighting in countries like Mozambique, in Libya, and in the Central African Republic, where Russia is extremely influential these days. So I think generally, you know, the Wagner Group can be seen as sort of Russia's sort of advanced guard in these countries. They project some sort of hard power on the ground, but of course often that sort of backfires because the Wagner mercenaries have been implicated in sort of quite severe human rights abuses, especially in the Central African Republic and in Libya. So I think, you know, it's sort of a double-edged sword for Moscow, and we will have to see sort of how this Wagner/Russian intervention in Mali plays out in future weeks.
Felix Light, journalist for the Moscow Times. Felix, thank you very much.